Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar on the Schedule Management Adoption by University of Southern California webinar, Unlocking the Power of Data. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them into the Q&A window at any point. Our speakers have set aside time at the end of the presentation to answer your questions. If you're looking to receive continuing education credit, all attendees can access their credit and a certificate of completion in their CMAA Learning Center under the Completed tab within the next 24 hours. I'd also like to say thank you to our webinar sponsor, Project Mates. I'll start by introducing our speakers for today. Harpreet Suji, Manager of Capital Programs at OnIndus, and Irene Olivas, Interim Associate Vice President, Controls, Finance, and Administration at the University of Southern California. Before we begin the webinar today, please take a moment to answer this poll question, which I am launching now. Where are you in your organization's schedule journey? Are you looking to implement a schedule have to expand it, sorry. Are you looking to implement a schedule policy and program within your organization? Are you in the midst of schedule implementation and you'd like some tips and pointers? Have you completed a schedule implementation program and you're looking to take it to the next level? Or you are just interested in this USC's case study? We'll give you a moment to answer the questions. Irene, are you able to see their answers?
And no, actually, I'm not able to see them.
Well, we've had about 70 people complete the poll at this time. About 8% of them are looking to implement. 17 are in the midst of a schedule implementation. 19 have completed a schedule implementation program, and about 54% are interested in the USC case study.
You're popular.
All so much for completing our poll. Thank you both for being here with us today, and I will turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for taking the time and joining us today for this webinar on schedule management. Today, we are going to discuss schedule management from an owner's perspective. And as a case study, we will review the best practices followed by a higher education owner, USC, in implementing schedule controls and to track the program schedule in the project management information system, which in this case was eBuilder. My name is Harpreet, and I will be co-presenting with Irene from USC. Irene, please, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Certainly. Good morning, everyone. If you're on the West Coast, good afternoon. If you're elsewhere throughout the country. My name is Irene Olivas, and I am the Interim AVP for Controls, Finance, and Administration with USC Facilities Planning and Management. I have been with USC for 10 years and have over 30 years of experience working on behalf of self-performing contractors and owners. Prior to my current engagement, I started my career working for self-performing contractors in various increasing capacities. After 13 years of working on the contractor side, I transitioned to a CM role working for 3DI Parsons as part of the LA Unified School District's new construction bond program, where I was there for 6 years. From there, I moved on to working for the Exposition Line Construction Authority on phase 2 of the Metro Exposition Line project.
Thank you for sharing, Irene. To tell you all a little bit about myself, I am a project manager with OnIndus and have a 15 years background in operations, software, and business process optimization across diverse industries. In the realm of construction, I have worked with numerous government and higher education owners to optimize their project management information system and help them align their PMIS with specific business processes. I specialize in the conceptualization and creation of various analytics and dashboards which provide our owner clients with valuable insights and helps them make data-driven decisions. And a little bit about OnIndus while we're on the topic. We are an advisory firm focused on improving capital project outcomes for owners. Our team offers a breadth of solutions and services, from strategic roadmaps, assessments, to implementation of tools and technologies. We focus heavily on data analytics to help drive positive change in owner organizations. Irene, please would you tell us a little bit more about USC and the Facilities Planning and Management Department that you help to lead?
Yes, of course. USC is the oldest private research university in California, enrolling roughly 21,000 undergraduate and 28,000 plus postgraduate students. We are the largest private employer in Los Angeles. We have two main campuses, our University Park campus in the heart of central Los Angeles. And slightly to the north of University Park is our Health Sciences campus, which includes our Keck School of Medicine and Keck Hospital of USC. Not to mention that we have many other satellite offices, including our recent acquisition, Washington, D.C. The Facilities Planning and Management Department, FPM, is comprised of 5 pillars: controls, finance, and administration, real estate and asset management, university architect, capital construction development, and facilities management services. And our area of responsibility is quite expansive, as you can imagine. It ranges from new construction and renovations, maintenance and operations, to real estate acquisition and leasing. We are constantly improving and expanding our campuses nationally and internationally. We average approximately 400 plus active projects per year, and they range from small carpet and paint replacements to laboratory and classroom renovations to large-scale new building or facility construction. We currently have a capital program of over $2 billion. With a program of this size, and like many owner organizations these days, we felt it was critical to take a closer look at how we were planning and allocating our resources and projecting portfolio cash flow. The first step in this process was to implement schedule management and the necessary associated controls.
And as a capital program owner, Irene, you had the right vision and roadmap. I mean, imagine embarking on these monumental projects without a well-structured schedule. In my opinion, effective schedule management for an owner isn't just about time management. It is the linchpin that ensures that the project and the program progress smoothly and the intended benefits are delivered on time and within budget. So, Irene, from an owner's point of view, could you tell us a little bit more about how does the visibility and tracking of program schedule help you?
Well, Harpreet, from my point of view, it comes down to 3 essential items. It helps provide owners with visibility into resources from a portfolio level and allows for proactive planning and allocation of those resources. Secondly, it empowers owners to understand the potential programmatic impact of project delays. And lastly, it allows us to effectively manage stakeholder expectations on project duration and delivery. In short, it allows for better collaboration across the board. At USC, it is also to plan and manage portfolio cash flow. Like many universities managing a large capital program similar to USC, it's critical to understand expected cash flow for the entirety of the portfolio. And it allows for important planning and decision points by our leadership on items such as how and which projects to fund and or to prioritize projects based on cash flow and available resources. Implementing schedule allows us to optimize resource allocation for maximum efficiency. Having greater visibility into project manager workload, as an example, is essential and enables us to better understand and plan for project management assignments and the staffing needs to meet the expectations of our customers, our key stakeholders, and our university leadership.
Thank you, Irene. We both agree on the importance of a schedule and the impact it makes in achieving organizational goals. But let's talk about some of the common challenges faced by owners in the absence of a robust schedule management system. I believe some of our audience who's implementing schedule in their organization will be able to identify with some of these issues. So Irene, please, would you share with us what were some of the issues your department faced before you implemented standard schedule practices for schedule management?
Yes, we had varying degrees of understanding about scheduling among our project management team, who come from many diverse disciplines and prior engagements, whether it's architectural, engineering, or construction management. Some project managers were very good and knowledgeable about schedule, about key terminology, and schedule how-tos, while others had very limited knowledge and had never really utilized scheduling software. Everyone had different methods and ideas also on what milestones and activities needed to be tracked, which makes things incredibly challenging when you're trying to establish uniformity across a vast cross-section of project types and delivery methods. Reporting was not streamlined, and considerable effort was deployed to allow reporting for executive leadership. There was an overabundance of manual effort to provide the consistent and real-time data that was necessary to manage portfolio. Most of our team was utilizing some vehicle to prepare and track schedule, but it was varied and inconsistent. Some used CM schedules, some simply applied milestone dates to their memorandum of understandings or MOUs with the customer. Some used Microsoft Projects or Excel to prepare and track their projects, but only a few project managers utilized or had even familiarity with more sophisticated systems like P6, for example. All of these methods were largely offline, so there was no visibility to the data. And as you would expect, excuse me, there was a lack of uniformity in terms of milestones and activities. And overall, we had a very impacted programmatic schedule view.
And
yes, and then an abundance of manual entry. So project managers were applying standard milestone dates to custom fields that we had created on what's called the project details page. Some of them date fields, some were logic fields. So we could have some semblance of visibility and uniformity across the project portfolio. There were no controls in place to identify if the dates were accurate, since most of the schedules were maintained offline. We created exception reporting to request changes when things simply did not make sense. And it became essential to remind our project managers constantly to update these fields on the project details page of their projects as the schedule shifted. There was a considerable amount of manual effort to remind and push staff to update these fields, and there was no real validation to confirm that the details were updated and that they were accurate. Related to this was our monthly cash flow exercise, which was a very manual effort driven by a departmental Excel spreadsheet that was provided monthly to our leadership.
Thank you, Irene. I recall that once USC hired OnIndus, we had multiple conversations to gain an understanding of the issues your organization was facing. And based on those conversations and our analysis, we proposed a roadmap on how we could address the issues identified. First of all, right off the bat, we determined that a schedule policy with clear directive for the project management team needed to be put into place. Basically, remove all ambiguity with regards to schedule finalization, rebaseline, and frequency of schedule updates. We also recommended establishing schedule templates for different project delivery types. In those templates, we mapped the schedule activities to master tasks and tracked the program schedule based on those master tasks. And just to ensure, it's a change management, to ensure that there was no corruption of the policy and the templates, we designed a PMIS workflow for a review process of the schedules before they were finalized. We also proposed, based on what we heard, we also proposed building an automation to update project details based on the schedule, as well as set up dashboards which assisted you with launching this initiative across the department. I mean, this is a great plan and a roadmap, but as is the case with any implementation, we did face multiple challenges which we addressed together. So let's talk a little bit about those challenges and the strategy that we used to overcome them. The first aspect that I would like to discuss is regarding the development and buy-in of the schedule policy that we were planning to implement. As we've mentioned before, in USC, there was no clear organizational directive or alignment on where the schedule should be posted. Which dates would be the source of truth, the dates that were mentioned in the signed MOU with the customer or the construction manager schedule, and how often should the schedule be updated and where should it be updated? I mean, those were the issues that you mentioned were there, and people were already used to doing it in a certain way. So it was challenging. It was important to ensure that we had everybody's buy-in. So before the implementation of the schedule policy, some of the project managers were reporting based on the MOU dates, some based on the construction manager schedule, and some were interchangeably using the dates from both the schedules. Right, Irene?
That's correct. We addressed this issue by creating a well-defined schedule policy, so there was no ambiguity for the project managers on what was expected from them. Together, we defined the frequency of schedule updates. Monthly updates were established as a standard to ensure regular monitoring and reporting of project progress. We identified criteria for schedule baseline and rebaseline. We established that the decision to baseline or rebaseline a schedule would be based on stakeholder memorandum of understanding or MOU agreements, ensuring alignment between all parties. We decided to leverage our existing project management information system, or PMIS, of eBuilder as the designated system for schedule setup. This centralization improved data integrity, accessibility, and it would provide a pathway then to implement cash flow functionality in the next horizon.
What was the reaction to the policy from your team? What were the steps that you took to get them on board before launching this policy?
Well, we started by engaging our leadership and various members of our team individually, just to obtain their feedback and get some initial comment. Next, we presented our policy and our implementation plan to our directors and our departmental leadership in a monthly meeting we have that's called the Portfolio Optimization Meeting. Keeping them engaged in part of the implementation planning was critical for buy-in, and it was our hope that they would not only be active participants, but that they would also champion the new policy within their respective teams. We really emphasized to them the long-term vision of having visibility to meaningful schedule data across the portfolio and aligning with cash flow functionality, which simply put would be huge for our organization.
Moving on, we also recognized that part of the problem was that the project managers were creating their own schedules. Some were very detailed, and some schedules were extremely high level. Some project managers were tracking the schedule in Microsoft Project, some in Excel, some in P6. As you mentioned earlier, it was all over the place. There was no definition of master tasks and no clear directive on how were we measuring the schedule delays. So as a result, the project managers were required to manually provide the schedule dates in the project details of the PMIS, which in this case was eBuilder. And then there was a lot of effort that you as leaders, a lot of massaging that you had to do to get the information that you needed.
Right. The project managers had high-level tasks that they would leverage from the design schedule as well as the construction schedule for reporting. And as is the case with different project delivery types, there was a variation in the schedule activities in any given phase. Also, some project managers were using Microsoft projects, as we've mentioned, and some were using Excel. So some had created their own plan to track activities. In a few cases, for the same project delivery type, there were no consistencies on the project planned activities across different PM groups, which made things very challenging. As a result, there was no standardization in the schedule reporting to leadership. Controls had to expend considerable effort in streamlining reports from project managers to provide an update to executive leadership, and it was always a scramble. We had varying opinions on milestones and activities to be tracked. Some project managers were very detailed and felt more was better, while others were just the opposite, with a less is more approach. It was certainly difficult to find middle ground and bring folks around to agree on the right level of tracking. Our current process at the time mentioned prior is the series of custom fields to gain any kind of visibility, and it was simply overkill. Some fields were implemented as a result of a particular stakeholder request or a specific executive data point, perhaps, that had come up. And at this point, perhaps there was no longer any sense in tracking these particular fields, as many of them were obsolete, as an example. It just simply wasn't a good usage of project manager time and effort.
You are right. It was absolutely not a good utilization of project managers' time. To work out a solution for this issue, we gathered multiple schedules. We reached out to USC and asked them to share with us multiple schedules for the different project delivery types that their team was managing. And we also requested that we get the schedules from different project management teams. So we analyzed all the activities in all the schedules, and we developed an owner schedule template for each of the project delivery type, whether it was a large project, whether it was a design project, a feasibility project, different types of construction delivery methods. We actually developed schedule templates for all the project delivery types. And in all the templates, we ensured that there was consistency with regards to master tasks. We also ensured that we provided flexibility within the templates, mainly for the detail-oriented project managers. While the template had predefined master tasks, project managers had the freedom to add subtasks or activities based on the project-specific needs. It was a win-win situation. And the idea behind the standardized template was that once we had the master task and milestone activities set up, we could actually design and build an automation that would autofill the project custom detail fields based on the dates and schedule. So this way, we also were able to address the custom field date overkill that you mentioned earlier. Irene, I think we both can agree that once we took the time and effort to define the policy and design the schedule templates, we were fairly confident to go ahead and launch this initiative, right?
Yes.
But like with any change, we at OnIndus also felt it was important to vet it out with users and ensure that the policy and templates would align with the project manager activities and have a high degree of adoption. To that effect, we proposed that this change must be led by the team for the team. And we suggested that we run a small pilot to identify any shortcomings and at the same time, set up internal champions. So Irene, as an owner, I would like to hear how did you find this helpful to you at USC?
Yes, actually incredibly helpful. Creating a network of their colleagues to assist in this effort was critical to change management and to user buy-in. We conducted the pilot implementation and set up a champions network comprised of experienced project managers with diverse project portfolios and involved them in the pilot to gather feedback and ensure user friendliness. We started by training our champions team and then set up regular support sessions for them to keep in regular contact with them. From these sessions, we gathered feedback and made adjustments as necessary. We actively sought feedback from the project managers and incorporated their suggestions to continuously improve the templates and the schedule baseline processes. As a team, we reviewed the logged feedback in weekly working sessions with the project controls team and updated the schedule templates to where they would be more user-friendly to the project managers, but still effective and meeting the expectation and the reporting needs that we had. Once the templates were finalized, we proceeded to initiating the development of an automated process that you mentioned to update the project details page while we simultaneously prepared for the full launch of the training to the entirety of the group. And I will add one thing is that with those fields on the project details page, we prioritize which fields those should be. So of the long list of fields we had, we did make that effort to ensure that we were only targeting those fields that we felt made sense to track.
That's right, Irene. This pilot implementation strategy was crucial in ensuring a successful launch. At the same time, it also helped us to be better prepared for the anticipated resistance and questions from the project management team when we, would do the full launch trainings. I also remember that we further collaborated to develop a strategy for the full launch. We wanted to ensure that it was not just a one-time session that would leave the project team struggling to repeat and reinforce. Would you like to walk us through that strategy, Irene?
Yes, of course. OnIndus helped us a great deal by developing and creating training materials, which saved us quite a bit of, administrator time in developing those materials. We decided to train in smaller focus groups by director teams, which helped ensure that people were more comfortable in that setting to ask questions. Team isolation training tends to lend itself to a more relaxing and interactive training session. It also helps the directors to work with their group and manage them directly, to set up internal controls within their team, and to champion the change. At the conclusion of each session, we provided the full recording plus any materials that we shared. We maintained a database within eBuilder of all of these recorded sessions and materials for easy access at any time. As part of the documentation, we also shared the Q&A logs from the session. And after the initial training sessions, we continued to provide training upon request for new hires or for any construction manager engagements that we may have on some of our larger projects.
What about post-training support?
Yes, to ensure that the team felt supported throughout this process, we set bi-weekly office support hours where folks could come, pull up their projects in Zoom, and we could walk them through their pain points and guide them through areas where they were really struggling. Oftentimes, these were the most valuable sessions because the project managers were working in their own projects and in real time. We were able to coach them through the entry. For some of the staff members who weren't always comfortable, maybe sharing their own projects or where they were struggling, it was helpful for them to just simply observe their colleagues going through the process and watching it on their own. Lastly, we ensured that 1 or 2 of our scheduling champions were present in each session so they could share their insight and knowledge on the issues. It was helpful for the staff to also be able to interact and to know who those champions were so that they could reach out to them separately if needed. Sometimes they're just a little bit more comfortable dealing with their colleague as opposed to coming forth for help.
Thank you for sharing that, Irene. I remember those bi-weekly support calls were extremely helpful, and I distinctly remember some of those calls with the big aha moment, not just for the project manager who was sharing their issue, but for a lot of other project managers who were probably dealing with the same thing, but were a little hesitant to come forward or were still trying to figure it out. It was a big aha moment. So those bi-weekly support calls were really very helpful. And as project managers started using the templates and setting up their schedules, we, on our part, together OnIndus and your leadership, we wanted to ensure that they could see the benefit of their efforts and they could see how the schedule reports were being set up. To that end, we developed and we created Power BI dashboards that would refresh daily and provide the needed visibility to the team as well as to the executive leadership. Of course, as a side effect, it also helped to free up project managers' time as they no longer had to create an on-demand ad hoc schedule report. So that was a big incentive. I mean, let's talk a little bit about these dashboards and how they helped from an owner's perspective.
Yes, the dashboards help provide those quick, easy visualizations that we could use to provide leadership with information on the overall portfolio, but also for the directors and project managers to monitor their teams and their respective projects. The schedule variance dashboard provides an overview of how the projects are progressing against the baseline schedule. It helps to identify where slippage has occurred, for example, and provides a very good reference when planning future project timelines that will have, say, as an example, similar project types, delivery methods, and even customer. The data in this dashboard can be viewed by the director team, by an individual project manager, by project phase, or even by the building or the customer. So it gives us a lot of flexibility.
Yes, and I think we had a similar case with the next dashboard that we developed was, I think, program schedule.
Yes, exactly. The dashboard that's presented here is our program schedule overview, and it provides a quick snapshot of key facets of the program. The metrics on this dashboard can be viewed by project phase, by team, or individual project manager and customer, very similar to what we just saw on the last one. However, it shows how many projects are on schedule or delayed in construction and how long closeout is taking. This dashboard really serves as, again, another aha moment for the team, providing sort of a one location that has that 35,000-foot view of schedule management across the entirety of the portfolio in one quick snapshot, if you will.
Yes, and just to add on a little bit, this dashboard and what you don't see right now on the screen is that for all these metrics, there were underlying detailed reports that could be accessed, and some of these dashboards were directly connected to your PMIS system like eBuilder, that you could click on it and you could launch eBuilder and have a discussion also. So they were very interactive, and it didn't mean having to do multiple logins and have multiple screens open at the same time. Let's talk about the exception dashboard.
Yes. As a part of, controls and key elements of implementation is constantly being able to look at the data that you're now managing within the system and have adequate controls to review it. So to ensure that we set up and maintained efficient schedule controls, we identified some of those key exceptions that we wanted to track, and we configured it into an exceptions dashboard. Each exception card has an underlining detail or drill down capacity where you're able to pull up a report that provides the PMIS administrator and the controls team with the necessary information to improve and maintain the data quality and integrity.
Those are some really interesting customized dashboard to build. I know I enjoyed the process. Moving on, let's talk a little bit about adoption. You know, even with a successful training strategy and support, change management practices often present challenges that can impede progress and adoption. Research indicates that approximately 70% of change initiatives fail to meet their objectives, primarily due to the resistance and difficulties encountered along the way. At USC, once we completed training, we started tracking adoption. And as we were approaching the target date communicated to project managers, we noticed that the adoption was not as robust as we had hoped for. We recognized this together and we started addressing the obstacles head on to where today schedule adoption in your department is at 96%. Let's discuss, I mean, kudos to you, you were successful. Let's discuss some of the obstacles that surfaced and how we handle them. We discovered immediately that there was a lot of back and forth between the project managers and the PMIS admin, the eBuilder admin, in the schedule review workflow. And this was causing frustration in the team and delaying the setup of project schedules in the PMIS.
Correct. This was definitely a discovery process and having us really consider variables that we had not. You know, the first was we had an existing memorandum of understanding form. The MOU did not quite coincide with the schedule templates that we had come up with. We needed to kind of revise the form to detail out the specific master task activities and establish them so they were consistent with our templates. This also made things easier for our PMIS administrator, who was our control point for reviewing and establishing the schedule baseline. Certainly made his job a little easier. It also meant implementing consistent use of the MOU on all of our projects, where in some cases we didn't have one. And there might be different reasons for that. In large projects, it was maybe board approval. Those documents for the board approval contain that information. So we needed to consider whether MOU should be applicable in every single instance of a project that we have. We additionally developed and provided a short form schedule change MOU as well that PMs could easily generate from eBuilder. So if a schedule baseline occurred, or rebaseline, I should say, on the project, the PM did not have to completely revise the entirety of their MOU form. They could instead use a short form version to address the schedule changes only. We enhanced the schedule baseline process to make it easier for the PM to share the precise schedule milestone that was being changed. And lastly, we worked one-on-one with the PM and the eBuilder PMIS administrator to navigate and address the various scenarios for projects that were already in progress at the time of implementation.
Yes, that definitely helped to make the project management teams feel supported and heard. Another hurdle that we surfaced was that the project managers were feeling overwhelmed with setting the schedules. Most of them were handling multiple projects in various phases, and they were feeling overwhelmed in setting them up, and especially for the ones that were already halfway through construction. So how did we handle that?
Yes. Actually, you know, it's a matter too, when you look at an implementation, how you right size it for the organization and the implementation plan associated with it. And so we decided that if a construction project was ending by a certain date or was late in the construction phase or in closeout, the project manager did not need to go back through the effort of setting up the schedule in eBuilder. However, if the project's substantial completion was, say, beyond a certain date, or it was expected to be active or in construction for a considerable amount of time, then we needed them to apply that schedule to the project. So we really tried to make a very reasonable compromise there. We also mandated that to begin with, all projects that were in initiation, design, or in the procurement phases should have a schedule set up in the PMIS in all cases. This coupled with the change to the MOU fields helped to ensure a faster adoption.
Absolutely. The prioritization and the MOU changes definitely help to shift that adoption needle. What were some of the other strategies that we utilize at USC to drive the adoption?
Yes, actually, OnIndus provided us with a weekly adoption report for each director team while we were in the implementation phase, and it was very helpful to us. The report provided metrics for total projects, project phase, schedule setup status for each project manager in the directors team. This helped us to ensure that we were able to provide support where needed, meaning we could identify maybe where a PM was struggling and needed some help. It helped the directors also gauge how their teams were performing and how they were adopting to the new process. We could also provide our leadership with adoption metrics.
Yes, and this was a weekly report that we were creating.
Exactly. It was a weekly report, and it was a report that we really highlighted to our team. We sent out to the team weekly. We highlighted it in our departmental meetings, such as our portfolio optimization meeting, and also something we call Coffee Talk, which we have once a month with our project management teams. We shared our data as a means of keeping it front and center. We constantly reminded the project managers of the time benefit of setting up their schedules. We reminded them about the automation that would automatically update the project details every time they updated their schedules, so that manual entry processes, for instance, the one we prior employed, was no longer relevant. Obviously, this could not happen if their schedules were not set up. And for a little bit of fun, we provided some incentives, gift cards, and recognition and kudos, of course, for project managers, for example, who were first to complete their schedule or who had completed entry for schedule on all their active projects. And we have a very competitive team at USC, as you can probably imagine. So once there was a prize, they were a little bit motivated, and it was a lot of fun in that regard.
Yes, those Starbucks gift cards were very prized and sought after.
Exactly. Yes, definitely. And from there, we were moving to cash flow implementation in the PMIS, which was dependent on successful implementation of schedule. So once we showed the project managers the ease of setting up and updating the cash flow in if the schedule was set up, it definitely provided our project managers with extra motivation to apply their schedules to the PMIS system. They could see that they were replacing the old manual method of these critical processes with more streamlined, industry standard, and automated processes. So they could finally see this as a win. And then ongoing, we've continued our outreach with our users with check-ins. We provide training as requested. We have some training videos that OnIndus has provided us that we've recently shared with our team, which are great, easy, quick references that they can access at any time. And we do, continue to provide weekly compliance and adoption reporting for staff and for leadership. We want to continue to keep that, as I mentioned before, front and center for our organization.
Yes, from 96%, we want to move to 100%, right?
Exactly.
So keep on doing the push. Well, Irene, thank you so much for sharing the best practices. Just to recap, we discussed the importance of schedule management and the best practices for implementation and adoption from an owner's perspective. We reviewed the strategies adopted by USC, namely, and those strategies were drafting a clear schedule policy, setting up a high-level owner schedule templates, setting up automations to update project detail, identifying and standing up champions who help to lead the change in adoption, and lastly, setting up analytics to track exceptions, as well as provide the needed automated reports, thus freeing up some of the PM time, project manager time. As all of us are aware, for any implementation to be successful, it requires strong leadership support. I would like to say it requires strong client leadership support. And we at OnIndus really appreciate Wendy, who's now retired, and you. We were working both with you and Wendy at this time, and of course, Isaac. We really appreciate your support and collaboration through this journey. So thank you for that. This brings us to the conclusion of our webinar. Let's move on to see if there are any questions from our audience. I believe if they have any questions, they would type it in the chat window.
Yes, or into the Q&A box that we have as part of the webinar platform. We had a question from the very beginning asking about how the design phase accounts for 50% of the capital budget at twice the construction budget. That was from the beginning of the presentation.
Yes, I see that here. And just to address that, we actually at USC have entered a time where we are in the midst of planning approximately, there's about 8 of these really large scale projects. One of them in particularly is approximately in the neighborhood of about $500 million. So, and that these are projects that are currently in design right now. So that's why you're seeing sort of that large, dollar number, if you will, for those that are in design, because I believe most of those projects are currently statused in design. So as you can see, yes, there is a huge amount of dollars currently wrapped up in the design phase, but that's essentially what's driving that right now. So as you can imagine, as those projects then shift to construction, just how busy that will be, and how, what a large amount of money is going to be invested into that construction. I hope that helps answer the question.
Thank you, Irene. We did get another question in the Q&A box. Can you provide more details about schedule data integration with Power BI dashboards? Was it a direct connection, or did you have a transition landing platform which fed the dashboard?
I can take that up. In USC's case, we actually had they had the necessary infrastructure set up, which allowed us to do a direct data integration with their data warehouse for Power BI. Depending on the system and how your infrastructure is set up, we can either connect directly to the PMIS data warehouse and set up those dashboards, or we can work through a landing platform and connect via that. It mainly differs from organization to organization, but both the options were possible to develop Power BI dashboards.
Thank you. Our next question, did the project managers get training and update the schedules, or did you have a separate project controls team update the schedules?
Great question. I'll take that. Our project managers were trained, and they were responsible for setup and update of the schedules within the PMIS system. We do not have a group within project controls to help with that, or to do the entry separately. So it was completely on the project managers to do that.
Thank you. I have no additional questions at this moment, but just to give everybody a little extra time if they are typing something in, I'll just give the end of webinar housekeeping, and we'll see if we get any questions during that period. I'd just like to remind everybody they are seeking continuing education for education credit for this webinar. You will be able to access your credits and certificate of completion in your CMAA Learning Center under the completed tabs within the next 24 hours. Our next webinar, Use Lean and Six Sigma to Boost Construction Productivity, will be held on Thursday, October 9 at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. For a full list of upcoming webinars, please check the live webinar page on the CMAA website under Education and Training tab. And we did get another question, so here we go. Do the project managers import the contractor's schedule into the master schedule, or do they just input the contractor's completion date into the master schedule?
Also a really good question. I'll take that. They do not import the contractor's schedule. So what we were trying to achieve here is really a sort of simplified program schedule, right? As we kind of talked about sort of the diversity of the different types of projects we had and the different delivery methods. We tried to kind of have commonalities and a very simplified, what was really a program schedule, right? So that's really the kind of schedule we were looking at. Now, did the project manager sometimes refer to dates that were in the contractor's completion schedule? Absolutely, they probably kept that data in mind when forming their program schedule, but it was not a contractor's level of detail schedule that you would anticipate, you know, from the construction end.
Yeah, and I would like to add, Irene, for those who did want to, they had the flexibility as long as it was under the appropriate master task. There's another question.
There is. How did you address schedule contingency in schedule reporting? How do you verify if the date reported by the project manager is inflated or not?
Yeah, that's a very good question also. Schedule contingency in reporting, you know, I don't think we really addressed that in terms of, you know, again, the level of schedule we had was a very simplified program schedule, and we would not have really had a lot of activities from that regard to track that. Also, you know, as far as how we verified that the project manager was, you know, if they were inflating dates or not, there really isn't a lot for us to know that, other than our individual project reviews with the PM and really understanding and looking at other variables. So something that we didn't describe here today that Harpreet and the team at OnIndus helped us with was a project summary dashboard. And by looking at this dashboard, we had visibility into, for instance, the budget to the percentage spent, and looking at not just like side by side with the schedule milestone dates, but also looking at all the different aspects of the project, RFIs, submittals, and so forth. That might, looking at that dashboard might give us some glimpse into, you know, what the true completion was, where we were tracking on schedule, and so forth. So that was another tool that we really didn't describe here, but that we've employed as another means to really look at project progress.
And I would like to add here too, I mean, in our experience, most of the project managers and in other organizations too that we worked with, the experienced project manager usually build in a contingency into their schedules. And we also recognize that the schedule may get delayed at an activity level. Design may get delayed by a few months, but many times they're able to catch up during construction. So it is very important that when you are measuring your schedule delays, it is against a set milestone task. And in USC case, we were tracking schedule, how delayed your project delivery is based on substantial completion, right? So that was the one date against the milestone task against which we were measuring schedule. But yes, because we also had the whole process where the schedules were being baseline, if a project phase was getting delayed, that was immediately visible in the schedule variance dashboard, which could then kind of, you know, lead to conversations that, okay, you're starting to slip in design, or looks like in planning we are getting delayed. Do we need to you know, look at the schedule and re-baseline? So that is where the schedule variance dashboard was also very helpful to lead that conversation and assess if we needed to build in a contingency and re-baseline. I hope that answers your question. All right.
Thank you for these great questions. Yeah.
I know, fantastic questions. So moving on, I would like to thank you all for your valuable time and for joining us today. Irene, thank you so much for sharing your strategies with us. And I would just like to let the audience know that if they have any questions or would like to connect, please feel free to reach out and connect with us at onindus.com or drop me an email at hsuji@onindus.com. Thank you all very much. You all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Harpreet and Irene, for coming in to speak with us today. I hope you have a great afternoon, and thank you all for attending today.
Thank you.
Thank you.